like to introduce myself. My name is Jason Heath. I'm Technical Programs Manager, Assistant Chief Engineer with ORSANCO. I'll be leading this webinar. And as I said, I've unmuted everyone, and as long as I'd like to maybe just keep it free-flowing, and rather than having to type answers or questions in that we answer at the end of the presentation, if you have a question as we go along, if you would like to ask your question as we're going through the presentation, as long as it remains manageable, we'll proceed in that manner. And then there'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentation again. So with that, the purpose of the webinar, the Commission is soliciting public comment on 3 draft variances. You can see the list there. Koppers and Mountain State Carbon, both of those facilities are located in Follansbee, West Virginia, and Valley Converting Company, which is located in Toronto, Ohio. This webinar is to provide some background information and to answer questions. This webinar is not specifically for the purpose of receiving formal comments that will go into the record. If you want to do that, if you want to submit formal comments that go into the record, that can be done at the hearing, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later, or in writing to our mailing address or the email box that we have set up, and I'll talk more about that as well. So just to discuss webinar procedures, it says after the presentation we'll answer questions, which we will do, but I think with this size group, if you have a question as we're going through, feel free to ask it as we're going through the presentation. I'll try to pause at the end of each slide to allow for those questions. So I'm going to give a little brief background on ORSANCO for those that may not be familiar. The Ohio River Valley, ORSANCO is an acronym for the Ohio River Valley Water Sanitation Commission. We were formed in 1948 by the signing of a compact by the governors of 8 states that was also authorized by Congress. So you can see the 8 states that are there, the 6 along the main stem, as well as New York and Virginia. And then the federal government is represented as well. There are 3 commissioners from each of the 8 states that are appointed by the governor, and 3 federal commissioners appointed by the president. Our funding comes from those entities, the 8 states and the federal government. We have a full-time staff of about 20 located here in Cincinnati. Just to discuss the authorities, the compact is what authorizes the Ohio River Valley Water Sanitation Commission. That compact was signed by the governors of the 8 states. It's incorporated in the laws of each of the states, as well as it's incorporated in the federal law. Article 6 of that compact authorizes the Commission to adopt rules, regulations, and standards of which these variances fall under. If you're interested in a copy of the compact, I believe you can get that on our website. Basically, the guiding principle of the compact is waste discharged from one state would not be injurious to those of another state. Some of the program areas that, the main program areas that ORSANCO operates in, regulatory, which is really what we're talking about today. quality monitoring and assessment. That's probably the biggest area that ORSANCO operates in on the Ohio River and lower reaches of major tributaries, as well as spills detection and response. That's another big area that we operate in. And you can see the others, including our public information programs, which are very important as well. So what are the variances being considered? They are variances from ORSANCO's pollution control standards for discharges to the Ohio River. The most recent version is the 2013 revision. It can be found on our website, and it's to Chapter 4F, which can be found on page 18, which addresses the prohibition of mixing zones for bioaccumulative chemicals of concern. ORSANCO currently has a provision in the standards that eliminates mixing zones for BCCs, and in these three cases, they all involve mercury only, although there are other bioaccumulative chemicals that are listed. The current provision eliminates mixing zones for existing discharges after October 16th of this year. The variances, the draft variances that are being proposed and out for public comment now would allow for those mixing zones to be continued after October 16th and continue until the expiration of the current permit for each of those three discharges. And again, let me just say at the end of each slide, if there are any questions, feel free to ask. And if I don't hear anything, I'll just continue to move along. So why are these variances being considered? The mixing zone prohibition would require these discharges to meet the applicable water quality standards for mercury at the end of pipe. And each of these applicants has demonstrated in their applications, which also can be found on our website, has demonstrated to us that they will simply not be able to meet that water quality standard at the end of pipe for mercury at the effective date of October 16th of this year. So that is the basic reason why these variances are being considered. So to give you some specifics of each of the variances, these are in common to each of the variances, and the specific variances for each, again, can be found on the website. But these are in each of them, and I'll talk about them generally. All the variances are with regard to the discharge of mercury. All the variances would become effective on October 16th of 2015, and each will expire with the expiration of their current permit. So there are three separate dates, and they are spelled out in the specific draft variances on the website. Each of these variances sets specific effluent limitations for mercury for these discharges, and they're each different, and it's based on their more recent effluent performance data. Each would require implementation of a mercury reduction plan. These mercury reduction plans are required to have target dates for implementation. Each of the variances also requires that they would be required to do monthly water monitoring and annual fish tissue contamination contaminants monitoring for mercury. And each of them requires semi-annual reporting on each of the items above. And finally, the Commission reserves the right to revoke the variances at any time. So that is, in a nutshell, what each of the variances contained. I'll move on to some of the administrative aspects of the public comment period now. There was a notice of public hearing that was, we sent out several thousand emails. We sent written letters to each of the Ohio River discharges permitted. And we issued a press release to approximately 200 media outlets, and we have established a dedicated web page and email box to receive public comment. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. The schedule, the notice of public hearing was made on July 30th, 2015. There's an informal webinar, informational webinar. That's what we're having right now, held today. We have a hearing that is scheduled for August 18th. That's next Tuesday at 4 p.m. We're holding that at the Pullman Plaza Hotel in Huntington, West Virginia. And the comment period is open through the close of business on September 4th of 2015. How to comment, and all of these instructions are listed on our website. The deadline for comments is close business on September 4th. We will be accepting verbal testimony for the record on August 18th. That's next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Again, at the Pullman Plaza Hotel in Huntington, West Virginia. We will also accept written comment, and our address is there. You can find that on our website as well, or to the email address, pcs@orsanco.org. And we have a few stipulations on how we want to receive emails. The Commission emphasizes the submittal of scientific data and information to support to support your rationale for comment. So if you have specific scientific data or specific reasons for your comments, please provide those. They will be helpful in understanding what the comments may be. All materials to help you with providing your comments can be found on our website at www.orsanco.org, and then clicking on the Pollution Control Standards link. And those support materials include each of the proposed draft variances, each of the application packages that were submitted by the permittees, as well as ORSANCO's variance application and review process and our current pollution control standards. So this concludes the presentation, and you can see my name and contact information there. If you have any questions after this webinar, feel free to contact me either by email or phone, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. And if not, I will open it up for questions at this time.
Hi, Jason, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, this is Angie Rosser with West Virginia Rivers Coalition.
Hi, Angie.
Hi, thanks for being, available for questions and the webinar. It's helpful. So I'm just to know where we are. There's been one variance request that was part of the triennial review comment process, and then there's these three. Is that where we are now?
So these three are being proposed. We've prior to this, the first energy variance was approved at the last commission meeting.
Okay, so that was approved, and then these three will go through the public comment process and then be decided on at the next commission meeting, do you expect?
Correct. At the October, they'll be considered at the October commission meeting, which is being held in Buffalo, New York. What will be done is we will summarize the public comments received from this public comment period so that the commission has the opportunity to review those in light of potentially considering these.
Okay. And can you expect any more variant requests to come in between now and the October 16th deadline? I mean, or is there a cutoff for those to be considered?
We have another variance that we've received, variance request that we received from Toronto, Ohio. We've asked them, we're in the process of asking them for some additional information, so that may be considered at some time in the future. And in terms of ones that we haven't received, I can't comment on that.
Okay.
I'm not aware. We haven't received any additional requests.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Well, we'll stay on the line for a few more minutes if folks want to stay on and ask any questions. We'll give you a few minutes to think about it, and if I don't hear any additional questions, as I said, we'll stay on for a very few more minutes to give folks the opportunity. And if not, then after that, we'll sign off. If you have
Jason, since I have you, it's Angie again. I'll ask another question.
Go ahead.
And this is before I've read the variant. I've looked at them in detail, but you mentioned that they include reduction plans.
Yes.
Is there an accountability mechanism in there for if they're not meeting those reduction plans?
Well, yes. So the accountability, from my viewpoint, is this: they are required to report to us and the state twice a year on their progress. First of all, we required milestones with dates in there for their plans. And then they're required to report to us twice a year on the status of meeting those milestones, implementing their plans, as well as their monitoring. And then the commission reserves the right to revoke a permit at any time. So that is where I would say the the accountability would be.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Well, we'll stay on the line for a couple more minutes, and if anyone has a question, just feel free to speak up.
Hello, Jason. Can you hear me? This is Kale from Region 3.
Hi, KL. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you? I was wondering who will be responsible to monitor the compliance. Is the permit agency or the ORSANCO, the commission? Who or the state or all above?
Well, I would say the answer is two parts. The effluent limitations that are contained in the variance will be incorporated into the permits, and so the permittee is, responsible then to report on their, through the discharge monitoring reports, they're required to report on their meeting their effluent limitations, and then as I mentioned a moment ago, they're required to report to ORSANCO and the state on the implementation of their mercury reduction plans twice a year. And then in terms of the monitoring, the in-stream monitoring that we're for both water and fish contaminants, the permittee is responsible for conducting that monitoring, and they are also obligated to submit to ORSANCO a monitoring plan for our review. So we'll get the opportunity to review their plan and comment if we have comments, and then they will have to conduct the monitoring. Does that answer your question, KL?
Yes, thank you.
Other questions? Again, I'll remain on the line for at least a couple more minutes in case anyone thinks of something they'd like to ask. And if not, my contact information is there, and you can ask offline as well. We're still on the line. Are there additional questions? Okay, well, I think we will conclude this webinar. And again, if you think of any questions afterwards, my contact information is there. Feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. If there are no more questions, I want to thank everybody for their participation in this webinar, and we look forward to receiving any formal comments that you may have as part of the public comment period.